Welcome back to Cougar Chronicle.
Cougar Chronicle.
I almost want to say Kearsarge again. How many shows have we done?
Well, this is number 4.
This is number, actually, it is. I know, it's ridiculous.
Can you believe it's gone by this quickly? It's so much fun. And that's the best. Time flies when you're having fun, and it's always good to spend time.
It is. And, and that's social, emotional peace and connection. How interesting was that, talking about with our students?
Oh, well, and when we talk about the idea of our social workers, number one, phenomenal ladies that do great work for what they do. But the biggest piece is trying to really bridge that gap, because at the end of the day, it is about student learning. What can we do? What are our obligations? What do our kids need so they can be successful in the classroom, so they can be successful in life?
That's right. It's true.
That's really what we want to go with. So, all right, we're back again.
Well, Michael Bessette is back, and he's like plagues me. I was watching the Consumer Electronics Show, and I'm seeing all the AI vehicles and the, and I thought, oh my word, I know a little more now.
Yes.
But it's
Well, it's crazy what's coming out electronically. I saw a mirror that you stand on that does a full body scan of you and tells you your body mass index and all this stuff, and it makes a health plan. And
I know.
I'm like,
calling your car to come pick you up.
It's hard enough that my wife goes, "Are you really going to eat another one of those Twinkies? I don't need a computer telling me what do we have going on. So let me live my life." So this time we're changing things up a little bit.
That's right.
Okay. So not that just to get things going, you've heard of the MythBusters.
Yes, I have.
Right? Well, we're going to try our own little hand at that this segment.
Ooh.
And this time we brought Michael in to kind of talk about what are some of the myths that we're seeing as a district and a community, and how can we try to dispel some of those myths, maybe provide some information or avenues potentially. We'll see kind of where things go. Always great to have you.
Oh, some kind of a cool little
it's always great to see. I see him every day, and I'm bugging him more.
I come you just stop by to say hi, and it's always the two of you. Well, and that's wonderful.
That's
a great team.
The thing, we break apart when we need to, and we get things done, but it's just been, as always, it has been just the most wonderful journey, and just appreciate his partnership.
And and on a serious note, those myths are important.
Yes.
So, okay, let's start. Number 1.
What you got? So, this is the thing.
You're like, hey,
where to begin? There are a few of them. Let's start with because the last time that I was here, it seems like it was just yesterday. We were talking about the deliberative session, and one of the things I heard coming out of a discussion out of that was about teacher salaries. And we've got an important vote coming up, obviously, that surrounds the idea of our teacher contracts, and I think it's important to confront a rumor that's out there, or a myth that's out there, about how are teachers paid for a school year, or do they have their summers off? I think is the way it's expressed. They get paid an awful lot of money to have their summers off. It's expressed. There's 1,000 different ways people will express it. But it always just comes down to this myth about what do teachers do between June 18th and August, right? And are they or are they not paid over that period? And a lot of people just don't understand that teachers actually in their contracts are paid for 100, in our case, 88 days.
Right.
That's it. They don't get holidays. They don't get vacations. They get 188 paid days of work. That's it, at 6.25 hours. Multiply it out, there's your per diem rate, and there's the grid. And people want to look at that equation, and they want to say, well, they are, they're making this much, or they're making too much or too little, or whatever it is, and then they base all of these decisions on this premise or this misunderstanding that they're being paid over the course of the full year for a full year's worth of work. In reality, they're being paid for 188 days. But that does not include all the things teachers do to actually stay abreast of what they need to do, right? So there's licensure requirements that they independently work on. Goal setting is part of our Portrait of an Educator work. Yes. They will go out and find resources during the summer to read books. Even travel sometimes is a function of actual professional development for teachers, because maybe they teach a language, they're going to Greece and they're speaking Latin, right? So they want to go and learn more about the culture. Teachers are very active individuals for a lot of different reasons, as you well know, right?
And the part of that myth is I was one of the teachers who spread that salary out over the summer.
26 pays.
Because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to run out of money, right? And so someone might have been better at budgeting, but I thought, okay, I have X amount coming in every couple of weeks, or every week, I'm forgetting now. And, and it made sense for me, but I was getting paid not for the summer, but just spread them out.
Right. Well, and that was the whole goal. You think about that historically, is that there was a time and a place where if we paid you just in the time period of your contract, then you might be applying for unemployment in the summertime. which would be an additional expense. But because we have things spread out over 12 months, we're able to take that piece spread out. So when you look at the salaries that teachers make, again, it comes back to that 188-day piece. It's not an annualized salary.
No,
if you
no.
annualize that salary, it would be significantly higher. And not to say that those teachers aren't worth that money,
Absolutely.
but it's just, it's not an apples to oranges, an apples to apples comparison. It's very different.
And what I hear you saying, Michael, too, is that, you do spend a lot of time in your off time. And I know I did, because it was something you wanted to do.
Yeah.
You did lovingly, but it was also a big time commitment.
Right. And I'm not suggesting that every moment of the summer they need to recharge their batteries like everybody.
Sure.
It's a high compressed, environment for kids and for adults. And so taking the time to renew and recharge is important, granted. But what I do want people to walk away from this experience is understanding these are intelligent, highly trained professionals who have degrees, a minimum of a bachelor's degree.
Most have masters.
Master's degree,
Well,
the majority have.
It's 70%.
70%.
70% of
Wonderful.
our teachers
Yes.
have an advanced degree.
And it's not required now. It was back when I
Yes.
was teaching. You had to go for that master's, but now it's not.
Right.
And people do it because they want to.
Right, because they're furthering their profession. They're wanting to
Right.
add more quivers in their, or arrows in their quiver, tools in their toolbox.
Absolutely.
They want to make themselves better educators.
Absolutely.
That leads me to myth number 2.
Okay.
He's rolling now.
We need a big number 2 on the screen.
And I think it's important because, again, it comes out of the
Flash.
delivery to some of the discussions that we were having. But, people want to say to us sometimes that, we have all this money left over at the end of the school year that we never were able to expend. And unfortunately, and it's since, it preceded COVID, but it was exacerbated by COVID, we cannot fill positions. We just can't. There are a number of positions that are still open throughout. Usually they're paraeducator positions, which require a little bit less education than a classroom teacher in terms of what is brought to the table. But we had a multitude of other positions that are teaching, quote unquote, or related service provider positions that we just can't fill. But we have an obligation to budget for, because we need those people in our schools. We're working many workarounds to try to either bring in consultative people to do that work
Right.
at 3, sometimes 4 times the cost, right? In order to do that. And we know the best way to do it is to actually have the people on staff, which is why we try to budget for that, to make sure that they're on staff. But we can't fill those positions. When those don't get filled, that becomes a portion of the funds that holds over, and we only retain 2.5% of that. The rest goes back at the end of the year to offset taxes, right? People look at that as inefficiency. They look at that as us not being able to budget properly. And one of the things that is most commonly misrepresented out there around this argument is, well, if you know you can't fill the positions, then why budget for it, right? And you have to. Yeah. By law, we have to.
That statement makes me sad, though, because
Yeah.
those are services for our students
Right.
that aren't in place.
Well, when I've gone around to talk with select boards and town communities, we always talk about this point. Like this last year, we gave $2.8 million back to the towns to leverage against taxes, and people go, well, that's wonderful, but we see it as that's $2.8 million in planned services that we weren't able to provide.
Right.
And so it becomes those issues. We plan for everybody to be, every bus route, every para, every secretary, every custodian, everything to be filled. And we have to plan that way because there's a statutory obligation to it, the legal piece to it, plus just the ethical fact of not making sure that we're not shortchanging it. And at the end of the day, our teachers do a great job. Our staff does a phenomenal job
yes.
of adjusting in the heat of that, but it presents its own set of problems.
And let's take that back to myth number 1 for just a second.
Okay.
Because they are connected, I promise you.
Oh, no, we know that.
All right.
Please, go
Don't
ahead.
even need AI to figure this one
yeah.
out. It really comes down.
Roll. You got his coffee today.
It really comes down to this: competition. And it's no different than the business world. I mean, you've had some guests here, for example, our social workers or our counselors or BCBAs, our behavioral specialists, that right now we've never had to worry about competing with our hospitals or with different types of business or trades that hire these people. And they are not bound by contracts and CBAs that limit the amount of funds that we can pay those providers. And so when we hire a BCBA or we hire a therapist, we're competing against a hospital who can pay them $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 more.
private. Yeah.
Right? And often a series of very different benefits too. So people want to look at this as, well, they just don't want, we can't find people, or you're not a great, they're not there.
Right.
And in
Or they're
many
there,
cases,
their price tag is so much more money. We had a situation this last summer trying to bring in a school psychologist where we were trying to contract with that person and made a 6-figure offer to that person, and they turned us down.
Wow. Okay.
And so that's the piece that you don't get, and that's a contracted part. And so that's across the board.
I will tell you, whenever I hear salaries associated with the school, I think, my goodness, in the private sector, these would be very different. And so that's what you're competing with. It's not just going to the next district over or taking from, this is...
And there's sizable pay increases. In some places, we've lost highly qualified, very competent, caring adults that they've doubled their salary with a move that may take them 20 minutes further than where they drive now.
I'm glad you pointed this out, because that's something that you just don't really think of.
and I think it's really important when you see the vote on the teacher contract and pushing the contract through. That's a negotiated contract that takes into account all of the things that we've just discussed and more. And making our teacher salaries and benefits program for all of our staff, it's not just always about the classroom teachers, it's about keeping everybody in that fold competitive within the market to try to make sure that we can always fill our positions. And we struggle to do it, because this year we're going to have our contract, it'll last 3 years. I promise you that tomorrow, the neighboring school district who's in the same boat that we are is going to be in that same competitive band, and they're going to look to adjust accordingly.
So it's
make
always an adjustment to their schedule
Their
that
schedule
we do
that
to ours.
Kearsarge
So
does.
you're always, and that's just school districts. That's not even a private company
Right.
that says, you know what, I don't care what the school's paying you. We'll
Right.
get, and then the fringe
You
benefit.
think of
and
an
all
HR
that.
professional, right?
absolutely.
Whether private versus... We have 1 minute left. Do we have any more myths you want to do?
Oh, we got tons of
30
this to cover.
seconds
They're
or
not going to
less.
be today, but
We'll have you back
again,
and talk more
Exactly,
about that. But and I think those are the big things. We constantly are talking about, not misinformation, but just making sure that people are aware that a great opportunity to ask questions. We're doing the MythBuster piece, and we do that kind of tongue-in-cheek. But if there are questions you have out there,
Please.
contact us
Yes, absolutely.
directly. We want to engage in those
Yeah,
conversations.
without a doubt. Well, Michael, it wouldn't be a show without you. So thank you for coming back.
Always fun.
it's always fun for me. Thank you.
Always enjoyable.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Yes, Michael Bessette. Yes, so thank you for joining us. We're grateful for that. Well,
that.
you always get to be here for my favorite segment of the show. You know what that is?
Ask the superintendent.
Ask the Superintendent. It's coming up with us on Cougar Chronicle.